a lot of money, and I was never the type that really went too crazy with spending money. Like I initially paid myself first and set money to the side. My wife, she did the same thing, and it's funny because like when you go into a relationship with someone else, that you're two different people, right? And you see things differently. You have completely different experiences. And for her, um, and I always tell this to people, like for me, if I had $100, if I had $100 and I get paid Friday, I would save as much of that $100 as I can until Friday. Whereas my wife, she would spend $20 every day until, because she knows she's getting paid Friday.
How you guys doing? My name is DJ. I'm back again with another episode with the Boss Talk and Beyond podcast. Today, man, I have my brother right here with me. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Cedric Bridgewater, author of Love That Lasts, new author located in the DC area.
Oh yeah, man. If you guys don't have this book, man, we're gonna have it linked in the description box for sure. But man, let's talk, man. This, like I said, this is, well, I didn't tell you guys, but this is my brother, man. We talk about anything and everything, and we don't know where the conversation is gonna go. We just know that the conversation is gonna go. So, yes. But I do want to dive into just a little bit. Tell the people who you are, like, your journey of becoming Cedric Bridgewater. Yeah, what is that?
Oh, that's deep. That's a lot. That's a lot there. We digging deep at this point. Originally from Louisiana, grew up in a 2-parent household. So, I kind of got the both sides of parents, but also had 2 older sisters, kind of shaped my output for women with a higher respect and more comfort around in that space, and just a respect for my mom, my sisters, and just seeing my dad basically like my parents were very traditional in this aspect of my dad would go to work and make a living and come home and take care of the bills and things. My mom took care of us in the house. So it was very traditional growing up. But it was also kind of back in the 80s, it was different with parents, and it wasn't so much everyone had an equal say, and it was a lot of toxicity to a certain degree. So it was a little different growing up to fast forwarding to what it is now.
Right. No, that's amazing. So kind of diving a little bit more, right? Or we're going to add the book in there through your whole entire life journey, because I'm sure your different pieces in your life have helped curate the book. Where let's go into this. Where did the idea of starting or writing this book come from?
Great question. So initially it started out as journal entries. So when I first started dating my wife, it was basically just a bunch of journal entries talking about things from questions that I want, ask myself about what I was looking for, arguments that we had to kind of understand, get a better understanding of her and myself, as well as just ideas of just things of, dating and, the important factors of it. And for example, when we were dating, we talked about like finances.
Right.
And that was something that I did not really talk about comfortably. That wasn't something I was comfortable talking about. Even something that I saw as a kid, that my parents didn't talk about finances. So when she asked me about it, I was very standoffish. I pushed it off. I didn't want to talk about it. And, those are kind of things that made me journal more about it and just kind of reflect on it. And that's how the book actually came about. Fast forward, maybe we started dating in 2014, probably over a span of maybe 3 years. I just basically just took a bunch of journal notes and went back and, wanted to put it together. And that ultimately became an unofficial manuscript.
Right.
And then from that point, I was just like, okay, this is something good for me to kind of go back and reflect on. And, it created more deeper conversations for us to talk about and a deeper connection as well.
Right. That's great. What are some things that you've, of course, any relationship, there's going to be disagreements, right?
Absolutely.
And misunderstandings. Well, what are a couple of things that you've seen not only in your relationship but in other relationships that I guess you may have put in the book, but that or you've added in the book, or that you've seen has I'm not going to use. I wanted to first word that came to my mind was dismantle, but just kind of added friction to a relationship. What are some things that have added friction to a relationship that you've seen most often?
Yeah, I personally think that, and I'll just speak to our relationship generally, but for the most part, like we had a lot of the same values, right? So we really had the same beliefs. We're both Christian. We're both from the South. We both had our own experiences. Now we were vastly different, but also had a lot of things in common. But one thing that we didn't really do is go too far. Like when we argue, we kept it within a certain space, and that's kind of still how we do it. We've gotten even better at it. Like we used to be kind of, it got pretty crazy. Nothing domestic, of course, obviously, but more so just, we were able to kind of bring in our argument to where we never stepped out of a certain boundary. And I know for us, that really helped us because in previous relationships I've been in, it just kind of went completely left. And we've said things that we could never come back to or come back from. So I was just very conscious of that and more mature, of course, when I met my wife. But it was a matter of like understanding like, okay, we could disagree and we could have arguments, but it should never go past a certain place.
Right. And just a quick caveat with this conversation. Also feel free to ask me questions too, right?
Sure.
Right? And within this conversation. But no, I like what you said. Something that I've also done and look for in relationships as well is when we have disagreements or misunderstandings. I set the tone as please come into this conversation from an understanding point, right? Because a lot of people argue or have disagreements in order just to be right, right? It's like I want to be right on my side, you want to be right on your side, but there's no common medium,
right?
I've started looking into disagreements. Is like, what did I miss here? What did I misunderstand here? Am I missing something? Like, I understand what my actions did. How did it, I'm trying to see how did it make you feel? Okay, and for the other person is I want you to hear my side, right? So it's not really like one is talking over the others. Like I want to hear your side, or I want them to hear my side at the same time, and so that we can come to this medium and be like, okay. I see that this made you feel this way. I'm not going to do this, or let's talk about how we can come to a happy medium, as adults. Because that, I feel like a lot of relationships, it may not be noticed at the beginning, but when you keep on hitting hard,
right,
and just trying to be right all the time, that's when things start to, dive off.
Yeah, absolutely.
But okay, so going into the book, right, a little bit. You said one thing that you mentioned earlier is financials, right? And how important is it to learn financials for yourself before getting into a relationship? And how important is it, of course, just talk about it a little bit more, talking about financials within the relationship. Hey, everyone. My name is DJ, and I am the host of the Boss Talk and Beyond podcast. This podcast is for entrepreneurs. It gives them a platform for them to share their services or products, and also gives them a platform for them to tell their story. This podcast is also for you as a viewer. Feel free to be inspired as you listen and gain any knowledge that any of these hosts or guests are able to, give to you. We hope you like and subscribe and follow us and enjoy the rest of the show.
Absolutely. So, so for me, I was always good with money. So for me, I was very frugal. I saved a lot of money, and I was never the type that really went too crazy with spending money. Like I initially paid myself first and set money to the side. My wife, she did the same thing. And it's funny because like when you go into a relationship with someone else, that you're two different people, right? And you see things differently. You have completely different experiences. And for her, and I always tell this to people, like for me, if I had $100, if I had $100 and I get paid Friday, I would save as much of that $100 as I can until Friday.
Mhm.
Whereas my wife, she would spend $20 every day until because she knows she's getting paid Friday. Now,
Mhm.
neither one is wrong. It's just a preference that you have financially.
Right.
So it's just like when it comes to that, just really understanding how you are with money, understanding how the other person is with money, and just understanding whether or not that's something healthy, or if it's something that is responsible, and all by your standards, but just being on the same page about that. And what really initiated our conversation with finances was when we were getting married. We were trying to figure out, okay, this is going to cost this amount of money. What finances do we have going into this marriage? What debt are we carrying, and things like that. So we had to really dig deep into those financial conversations.
Right.
And it was, and I know that, and I'll share this, but pretty much a lot of people say that you're supposed to have your money in one way, or you're supposed to do this with your money as a couple. And if you're married, why do you do this? Or you're supposed to have. I personally believe that you should definitely understand the financial status of the other person.
Mm-hmm.
You should understand how their spending habits are. You should understand how their saving habits are, etc. But for my wife and I, we have separate accounts. Now, we don't do joint accounts, but we allocate responsibilities. So, I'll have these bills, she'll have those, and that's how we kind of function financially. Now, in that same breath, we both have access to each other's accounts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily like, oh, this is my money. This is just like how we're just more comfortable allocating bills versus putting money into a general account. And
Right.
we talked about doing that, but this just works well for us. We're very comfortable with this. It's like I said, we're very transparent with each other in that space, because like even my wife, she travel hacks, right? So she's always like, okay, use this credit card, or I saw that you paid this. Next time, put that on this card.
Right.
So it's just like we see each other accounts, and also at the every so often we just recently did it at the end of last year. We sit down and we basically audit our finances and say, okay, what subscriptions do we have? What do we have, like different investments that we're doing going into 2026. What can we cut back on? What do we need to spend more money on? So we have these conversations, and we're very vocal about those things. So like I said, I think finances is a very critical part of a relationship, and having those conversations.
No, I definitely agree. Man, I've well, as let me say it like this. As a young person, right? Coming into, you know, different levels of adulthood, um, it's, I'm speaking for myself, but I feel like I'm also speaking to other people that can also relate to this, right? It's like trying to figure that out, right? I come from a family, of course, family of a two-parent household at the same time. Um, but there were certain conversations that were never spoken about, right? And so it's like, in certain instances, it's where a child has to stay in a child's place, an adult stays as an adult, and if the child asks too many questions, then you need to go back to being in the child's place. Right. So, but I feel like that brings up challenges later on, because it's like, now I want to know, but I didn't learn it when I was a child, And so now I'm looking for other people to use as, admiration, other couples to use as admiration, and to kind of like, what's it called, listen hustle or whatever, and just trying to, air hustle, and just trying to see, how other people are doing it when they talk about it, right? And so, so I feel like that's that's something that I'm kind of doing right now, is trying to see, how other people are doing it as they feel comfortable with sharing it. So I definitely appreciate you guys, you sharing that, you being vulnerable and sharing that.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with like getting as much information from other couples and like hearing and then personalizing it for you. You know what I'm saying? So so there's a lot of people who would say, man, I had a friend who someone told him, your woman shouldn't be handling the checkbook, or well, not checkbook, but basically paying bills.
Yeah.
And it's just like, if the woman has better, if that's her strength,
Right.
and you are not strong in that space, like what's, you know what I'm saying?
What's the problem with it?
Right. So it's just a matter of like really humbling yourself and understanding who has your best interest going into that space because one thing that me and my wife talked about even getting married, we were just like, yeah, we don't want anyone to be in our wedding who's not going to be there for our marriage.
Right.
So it's just like having those conversations of like, okay, who do we really want to, because we still talk to older couples and really try to figure out every time I see someone older than me in a marriage, I mean anybody for that matter, but I'm just like, what's the secret, like what's going on? And so we're always like pulling in information and saying, okay, does this fit for us? I mean, yeah, no, then kind of being able to throw the water out without the baby. You know what I'm saying?
No, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. And then I'm also in agreement with you with having those weekly meetings, right?
Yeah.
Or even if it's not weekly, the monthly meetings that you kind of spoke about a little bit, and or check-ins because those are important, right?
Right.
It's like you got your life going on, your wife got her life going on.
Right.
It's
right.
like, and I know you guys come together, maybe, in the evening times, but it's never enough time to really like, let's, talk about it. So having that set time
Yeah.
to really, talk about financials, talk about next week's goal, if you guys are doing a monthly, talk about a yearly goal, and then, figuring out how financials is going, figure out how, mental states is going.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes that's overlooked as well as the mental state of somebody.
100%.
So no, I like I said, I thank you for being vulnerable with that. But
Yeah, absolutely.
moving into the next question though is like, what have you seen? What was the question? Due to disparities that you may have gone through in your early, livelihood, what are some other barriers that you've had to come through or go through or overcome, excuse me, that's the word, overcome, to continue to learn? Like, what are some other lessons? I guess I just want to ask, what are some other lessons that you've learned, as you came in there?
Oh man. So for me, I was the one that really kind of bumped my head at a few places and to really understand and learn and explore. And I say that because I am, out of my two older siblings, I'm the first to graduate high school, the first to go to college, which was a challenge in itself. Um, Grad school, move away, travel. So all of those things were very new for me and really kind of like honing in like things that I really like and understanding like me better, and that kind of again really goes back to my book because like with that, the book is more so for each individual. It's not a how-to, it's more of like a reflection to sit down and has after each chapter I have prompts of like questions that either ask yourself or ask your partner or talk to your partner about and just kind of get a better understanding to get on the same page.
Right.
So with that, it's just like, through my upbringing and, the lessons that I've learned is just to be able to explore, have conversations, put yourself in, outside your comfort zone and try to learn more about yourself and how you adapt to different things. So, and even in a marital space, it's just more like, okay, I understand that, at one point this was the norm. How does this fit? Like, because I never saw my dad wash clothes. You know what I'm saying? I never saw my dad would like he does like crawfish boils and stuff like that, but he never really was in the kitchen. I don't recall my dad using the stove much, if that makes sense. So it's just like going into that space and knowing, okay, I'll get up, I'll do breakfast, I'll do lunch, stuff like that to like just kind of do different from what I've seen just to create a space that's comfortable for both of us.
Right.
So, just like I said, just understanding, what my upbringing was like, and then also understanding the situation or the environment that I'm in now and how to do better in that environment.
Would you say that in your marriage, like you guys don't have gender roles, or do you guys have gender roles only in certain areas, or what does that look like to you guys?
if you ask my wife, she would say we don't have gender roles. But I definitely take the trash out. I definitely do the yard work.
Right.
But nah, honestly, we really don't really have gender roles. Honestly, if the clothes need to be washed, I wash the clothes. If the dishes need to be washed, wash the dishes. Like we just kind of like my wife is very clean, but if she puts the book on the table, like for me, I think everything has a home. I'm a neat freak. Like the remote control go in one place, this goes in another place, and the house is always clean, but it's just kind of for me, I'm like everything has to be in its home. So I'm the one that more likely will go in and just kind of move stuff around. But for my wife, she's like, as long as the place is clean, we're good. But yeah. So no real like gender roles. We just do what needs to be done.
Got you. Um,
Oh, and sorry, and
Yeah, go
also
ahead.
with that, it's just like if she's working a lot, I might do more. If I'm doing more, she might do more around the house. So it's just like we really, just kind of partner together to do everything that we're doing for the most part. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that kind of goes into like the mass conversation of 50-50,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I believe, and that's just, it's my opinion, like I believe that, no relationship is 50-50.
Right.
There's always going to be somebody doing more,
Right.
somebody doing less.
It's fluid.
It goes back and forth.
Right.
And so the kind of what you just spoke on, that's basically, I feel like if you eliminate gender roles in a relationship, then that's what that's what takes place right there.
Yeah.
It's the fluctuating of who has more and who has less. And that's just on the physical aspect, but then we also got the mental aspect of like, who's making who happy. Cause I'm sure you're not, you're not always feeling the best every day. And then she may, come in and help balance it out. So I just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah.
But moving into the book a little bit though, you mentioned that you ask, different questions and kind of have like a set where people answer questions at the end of each chapter.
Right.
What are some, if you don't mind sharing like a couple of those questions or a couple of your favorite questions that you ask in the book that you feel readers have really, gained attention to, or just like you say, your own personal favorites?
It's a lot of them. Like I said, I have 18 chapters and at least 9 to 10 questions per chapter. But my first chapter, which I think is foundational and really, help is basically understanding who you are and what you want. And it talks about more of, me and you might go somewhere, we might see, women, and we might look at her from a lens that is more common. Okay, she got this, this, and this. She's attractive. She might have this, this, this. That makes her attractive. So just really understanding, like, okay, removing the influence, like, what is it that truly makes me happy? So also looking at like things that, kind of what we talked about as far as finances and, cleaning and this. So what are your strengths versus your weaknesses? And it's okay to have weaknesses, but, looking at someone who shares your weakness might be a challenge. Whereas if you have someone who, has strengths where you have weaknesses, that might make things, be a little smoother. But these are not things that people actually focus on, is whether, they have a type of car or, whether they, have this, what are they bringing to the table and this and that, very materialistic type of, things. But so yeah, I mean, honestly, those questions in that is just like one of the questions is, if you are one religion and the other person is a different religion, if you have a child, what are you gonna, what they so it's just kind of evolving those thoughts into more deeper conversations to say, let's talk about this now versus now we have a kid. I don't want my kid to have that religion, and now we are at odds. And, so it's just like having those upfront conversations and being able to, unveil and be vulnerable with either yourself. Honestly, like that's where it starts, is being vulnerable with yourself, and then, creating a safe space to where you can be vulnerable with someone else.
Right. No, that's a really important question too. I mean, I feel like some, of course, a lot of questions for deal breakers, but I feel like that can be deal breakers for people.
Right.
But that I kind of get what you're saying. that foundation, because you do need to know that question.
100%. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and a
And,
lot of
and kind of going back to your statement about like the 50-50, it's just like, we live in a time where everything is so expensive. You know what I mean? So it's just like, there are some people who are like, I want to go 50-50 on a more of a standard thing. Like, you have to go 50-50 no matter what. And then there are some people that's like, okay, well, we can live this lifestyle, but I really want to invest a certain portion of my finances. So this is what I have available. This just so happened to be 50% of it. So just having those more serious conversations about 50-50 versus a high level of like, we got to go 50-50 with everything. So it's just having a more in-depth conversations and really understanding the other person in those spaces. Because I mean, to be honest, when me and my wife first met, um, we had conversations about how she was like, so you wouldn't let me stay home and you be a stay-at-home person, mom or wife or whatever. And we were like, I was just like, under no circumstances, like, and I think we were probably dating for like a few months at this time. And I'm like, under no circumstances. And like now I'm like, if it gets to a point to where you're stressed out at work or this is like affecting your quality of life, then we'll have to adjust some things,
Right.
but it's possible. But then it goes back to like, okay, are you willing to, deal with the adjustments? You know what I'm saying? Because you got to pick and choose and cater your life to where, the decisions that you make ultimately. But yeah, I mean, like I said, mostly it's just about understanding each other and being vulnerable.
Right. Right. Um, no, that's I'm taking it all in. No, because that's important.
Yeah.
I mean, all these things are important, but that's. I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of the Instagram posts where there's a guy. He's like, make sure you ask these questions when you go on your first date.
Yeah.
What's your credit score? What is this? What is that? What's your religion?
That's wild. That's wild. I think first dates that's a bit steep.
It is.
Trying to see if there's chemistry there. You know what I mean?
Right.
But no, I definitely seen those, and I feel like everyone. It's crazy because we are so different. Like even for my wife and I, for example, she's from Memphis. I'm from Baton Rouge. Like even though we both grew up in 2-parent household, we still grew up in completely different households. She has a younger brother. I have 2 older sisters. Her parents were educators. My parents worked blue collar jobs. So it's just like we have so many different things. Yet we have a lot of things in common, but it's just those things made us different people.
Right.
So it's like really unfolding back. Like there's still things that my wife and I talk about, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. What was it? I was telling her like as a kid, like we used to play football in a certain place, and she saw it, and she's just like, oh, I didn't know you played football. So it's just things like even though it seems small at some point, you really get to unfold the layers
Right.
of people, and you understand them better.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, right? Do you feel like, well, people are. Well, let me set up the question. People are ever changing, right?
Right.
And people, they would say one day I don't like this, but next day I like this.
Right.
Not the next day, but like
yeah,
maybe years down the line and whatnot. Do you feel like you completely know your wife, and do you feel like your wife completely knows you as a whole?
I don't feel like I know myself completely.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Because there's still things that I'm like really, I honestly take time to really reflect on things from childhood and, high school, college, things that just kind of impacted me that I didn't realize. But that's an amazing question. And I say that because I am not who I was when we first met, right? And she's not the same person she was when we first met. We both evolved. And I think having those conversations and definitely like the questions in at the end of each chapter really helps you stay in tune. Because I'm constantly like asking my wife, like she actually surprised me recently because kind of like you say, things change. And like for years, we've traveled, and then one day I asked her, and like I said, I touch base with her pretty often. I'm just like, hey, do you still, you still like the color green? or are you still, like food? Because
Right.
she's a foodie.
Right.
And then I asked her if she likes travel, and she like, and I'm like, wait a minute, like what's happening here? Like, like we wait a minute. So for me, like traveling, like we travel literally every continent,
Right.
right?
Right.
So that was kind of kind of took me aback, and we were able to talk about it, and it wasn't so much that she didn't want to travel, it's like how we travel.
Mhm.
So it's just like not back to back travels, or not a trip that's like, if today's Wednesday, not booking a trip Friday.
Right.
Just kind of giving some more time,
Little
because
space.
yeah, so we just need time to kind of, or she needs more time to like unwind and prepare, and things like that. So having those conversations and digging deeper into those conversations really help you understand the person better as they evolve over
Right.
time. Because we've been together, we've been together 11 years.
Mhm.
Be 12 years this year. And when we met, we lived in Phoenix. We moved to DC. Like I said, from that point, we've had so many different things happen in our lives that shaped us.
Mhm.
But we were just able to have, constantly talk, constantly have conversations. And we do road trips and stuff like that, and that really opens up conversations because we're like with each other.
Mhm.
So yeah, you're going to evolve, you're going to change, and it's just staying in tune with the person that you're changing with.
How important is it for things that you guys have in common
Mhm.
to help move the relationship forward?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I'm asking that because as you've learned that things have changed,
Mhm.
right? Maybe things that you guys had in common may not be in common anymore. So
Right.
that's why I'm asking how important is it for things that you guys have in common helps move the
Yeah. I think it helps. It's really good to have things in common, and that's kind of like the foundation of like, okay, these are the things you have in common. These are the things I have in common. Let's kind of work with those
Mhm.
things. But it's also healthy to have separate things that you are interested in. So, we even talked about like, okay, if for me traveling is I unplug when I travel. I don't
Mhm.
have phones. I don't like literally only thing I use. I don't get on Wi-Fi. Like I just use my phone for camera. So in those cases, we had the conversation of like, hey, if you are not interested in traveling when I want to travel, I usually travel to unplug. So if I need to unplug, I need to unplug.
Mhm.
And just giving each other the grace, to be able to still be who they authentically are, and kind of evolving from that space. So she understood where I came from in that time. Is not like I and even more recently, we ended up going somewhere, and we said we were going to use this as like the financial planning thing. So we sat in a hotel, had our computers and stuff
Right,
like
right.
that. So it's not like we go out and go crazy, and that has never really been my character. So
Yeah.
she understands like, okay, if I'm going, so I'm really going to like unplug and relax, and so that all goes into understanding each other and learning each other and stuff like that. So,
Okay.
but I think it's good to have things in common and share those things. But it's also it doesn't hurt to have your own
Things in common.
yeah.
For sure. For sure. For sure. Um, are there any other books you're looking to write? Because I know this is your
Uh,
first one.
yeah, so this is my first one.
Yeah, we're gonna say it too. Love that last.
Love that
We
last.
need to keep. We
Yes,
just keep saying book. No, this is love that last right here.
yes, yes. I actually been tossing around a finance book.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been tossing that around, and my wife and I, we're part of a fire community. So basically, financial independence, retire early,
Mm,
and we've been on that journey for probably almost 10 years. I would
mm,
say, 9 or 10 years, something like that. And she was on it before me, so she was able. She always invested. I always saved,
mm,
but I never really put it into, you know, an investment, index fund or something like that. So I never really did that because in my mind, I lived off of scarcity. Like I was just like, I don't know when I'm going to need my money, and if I put it in this account, I can't get it out. So,
mm.
which I learned that was false. But for the most part, that was my understanding of it, and I think that's the challenge with a lot of people about not investing is because like I'm going to need this money, and I don't want to take any chances with it. But so that's why I'm tossing around the idea of writing a book about finance just from my perspective, and kind of same thing with Love That Lasts. It's just more of like what helped me, not a to do, how to type of book, but more of like, okay, ask these questions, you know, introduce, different concepts and, allowing people to say, okay, I like this, I don't like this, I like that, and just make a decision on how they feel.
I like that. I mean, as you were talking, I was kind of thinking maybe, Chris just said suggestions, but series of Love That Lasts because
Yeah.
you've already made it, not necessarily a workbook, but you've made it
Right.
interactive, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, continue to ask people, questions
Right.
or diving deeper into chapters within the book that you've already written, and then asking and continue to ask deeper questions with that.
Yeah. Like
And
taking a chapter and just kind of expounding on it.
yeah. So something like that. I don't know,
Yeah.
but no, no. No, I definitely understand that, and I definitely, agree with everything you've been saying, man.
So for you, what have you found to change with your, like you said, you came from a two-parent household. What have your understanding of a relationship, how had that evolved from when you was a child to now you as an adult?
Um, so I grew up with, started off with two parents. They then got divorced, and then I grew up with my mom. And then until she met my stepdad,
Mhm.
and then I saw that, I saw that relationship. So with my life, I've given, I have a lot of respect for, how to treat a woman. Being with my mom, learning, things from a woman's perspective,
Mhm.
and then eventually getting a male's perspective
Mhm.
in certain areas. But there was a section of my childhood where I didn't have that male perspective.
Right.
And so I would say, um, through even that section and still continuing now, I'm still looking at, people that are close to me, like, like yourself and other male figures or people that I deem as male figures, um, for admiration. Right.
Gotcha, yeah.
I like I said, like I ear hustle. I watch. I feel like I'm very keen eye, detail oriented. Because and I feel like I have a good filter.
Yeah.
And what I mean by filter is I know, I like this. I don't like this.
Right.
And maybe I should like this.
Yeah.
And a lot of people miss that one right there. I
Right.
should like this. It's like because he's just like no, no, no. But sometimes there's a yes. Like this is how things need to be handled as
Right.
and so I feel like that's what my perspective has been like. Growing up is just looking for male figures that I would like to continue to kind of be a piece of a like, because I don't want to be like anybody. I want to be my own self, but just certain pieces that I can get to help form who I will eventually be.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay.
To answer your question.
Nice. Okay.
For sure.
Yeah. Now that's important, man. Like I said, it's because there are a lot of people who look at certain relationships and say, I want that. I want what my parents had. And it's kind of dangerous doing those things. And just from my perspective, it's just like your mom is somebody for your dad. You know what I'm saying? Like your mom is different from a lot of people. Your dad is different from a lot of people. So when you try to replicate that, you are now assuming that you are like one of them, which you are not because you have a different experience.
Right.
And the person that you meet may not be like your mom and dad because they have a different experience. So just trying to appreciate what you see, but also trying to create what you want. And I think, like I said, that was the ultimate thing with the book is just really trying to say, okay, sit back, ask yourself questions, have these conversations with, either yourself or someone else and just kind of fold back those layers and really get a better understanding of like what you want.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I also wanted to ask, how'd you get into numbers? And I asked that again, to kind of give some background about it, is that you said, growing up, you didn't have, or you didn't, excuse me, you didn't talk about, or you didn't have that talk with your parents about financials,
Yeah, right.
And then, kind of, getting to where you are now, you say that, you're a numbers guy. So then where in your journey did you start getting into learning more about financial?
Yeah, so that's funny that you asked that. I remember as a kid, I asked my dad, I probably maybe barely a teenager. I asked my dad for like $5 to go get my hair cut. And he gave me the $5. And then the next day my dad came knocking on my door and he was just like, "Hey, you got my $5." And I'm like, if I had it today, I would have just waited till today.
Right.
But that taught me a lesson about borrowing. Like I was just like, okay, I don't want to have to owe nobody anything. So I was very frugal in the aspect of like, okay, I don't want credit cards. I don't want this. I just want to make sure I have the cash. I have enough reserve. So that kind of shifted my mindset of finances and how to accumulate money. Fast forward, meeting my wife, she was more into invest. She had what is it called? A financial advisor. And she was working with him. He was able to, kind of show her the investment that she was using. She gets right, she digs into it, right? So for me, it was just more of like, okay, when I started seeing my money grow, I was like, oh, okay. And then I got introduced to different concepts, like the financial independence concept was, it teaches you how basically you have to know your numbers first. Once you know your numbers and know how much money you spend monthly, you multiply that times 12. You take that number and you multiply that times 25, right? Once you have that number saved into an investment account that pays at minimum 4%, you could take that 4% and live off that, every year. So that's a little complex, and that's definitely another conversation I would love to have. But basically understanding those concepts and saying, okay, if I save up this much money, because a lot of people don't understand how to retire. They think that I just work until I'm 65 and then I could, retire. But ultimately, that leaves a lot of people still either working and having to work, or that makes you work for, for nothing. Like basically, you might be able to retire 45, 50 years old because you've actually accumulated enough money to sustain you for the rest of your life.
Right.
So, once for me, I've always liked being able to have money. And not in more of a materialistic way, but more of a security way. So when I got the understanding of saving and started seeing my money grow, and then I got into investments and I started seeing my money grow, and then I got into these concepts of retirement and not having to work and knowing my numbers, it was just like, okay, this just came natural for me. So, and we've had the conversations about it, and I talk to people about that because that's something that I never knew growing up.
Right.
And I just want to make sure that other people understood their finances to that degree. Like not necessarily, I've helped people with budgeting, but that's not really, I don't know if you heard of Dave Ramsey. Like Dave Ramsey is a certain space where he's like helping you get out of debt, and he tells you cut up your credit cards, use cash only. And that's where I was at one point. But then there are different people that you look to for the different stages. And like one thing that, because I only had one credit card till I met my wife, and now I have like 30, right? But I don't have a rollover balance on any of them, and that's something that we use to travel hack. We basically meet minimum spends. We use certain credit cards for certain purchases, and we're able to accumulate points, and we could travel for free. But being responsible in using those credit cards. So as I just learned new concepts that just really opened my mind up to different things and really having a better understanding of numbers.
No, I got you, man.
Yeah.
I've always had a hustling mindset. Being from North Carolina, it rarely snows.
Yeah.
But when it did snow, I was definitely the one out on my street shoveling stuff. Because just like kind of like what you were saying is, I always like to have money in my pocket. I hated asking my mom for money. Yeah. Like, even though I still ended up doing it, but I hated it at the time, It's like, I always I was too young to get a job. So I was like, let's go make some money. I lived in a pretty, decent neighborhoods. I saw an opportunity. I was like, nobody else is shoveling the snow. Yeah. Nobody else is. Then start adding another service to it. I'm gonna clean your car off too if you want me to for an extra $10. Yeah. So. Yeah. go out there and make a good 50, little $100, and now I got money to go and travel or do whatever I
Right.
needed to do for the time being. So,
Yeah.
no, so I definitely understand, having that mindset of, numbers is like in numbers. I'm also the type to, go on, my stock page and just look at the numbers go up and down.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
literally sit there and just watch 5, 6, 7, 8, 0, 9, like.
Yeah. And they say like you don't supposed to do that, but it's just like it's
I know,
addictive.
like,
for me.
yeah.
I like
just
going
seeing
back.
the numbers go up and
Literally
down.
every day I check all my accounts and just be like, okay, all right, cool.
Yeah.
But kind of going back to that, so that's what made me stop asking my dad, and I'm like, I got to get my own. But fast forward to like even over the last few years, I started realizing that I had the same mindset as my dad would always cry broke. My dad, like you go to my dad and ask him for money, he's like, I don't have it. I got to pay these bills, and my dad had a very toxic relationship with money. So and I started and that's so important. That's why reflection is so important, because I found some of my habits that way. And I'm just like, okay, I need to really, understand where this is coming from, how to evolve from this, and understand my current financial situation. And so, going through those processes, it's just like, you really unfold things and really understand more about yourself. You're vulnerable with yourself. But that really helped me knock down barriers. And one of the things was, an investment property. It was just like, okay, I didn't want to take out that debt. But the thing about it is, if you have a plan for the debt and you could execute on that plan, then you're good. But in my mind, before I met my wife, I would have never done that, because she's more of a risk taker when it comes to that. I mean, calculated risk, but a risk nonetheless, to where she's like, let's get this house. We could do this. So when it comes to things like that, that really helped me shift my focus as far as like financials and understanding where that thought process came from. You know what I mean? Like knowing that this ties directly to my dad. And while that was probably a good for a time right there, I should not be holding on to this concept. I had to let that go and understand where I am now. So like I said, man, reflection and just being vulnerable with yourself is huge.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. We're kind of moving forward a little bit. I understand this is your first book, right? So somebody that's looking to get started writing a book, what is some guidance that you give to a beginning writer?
Yeah. I went a more unorthodox way, right? So like I already had the content created through journaling that I was able to convert that into a manuscript and then convert that into a book. If you are just, I would say even start with that, like, really, really write down, take your time and write down what you want to talk about and break it out into sections and, expound on those things. But I don't know exactly how the best practices are for writing books. I don't really want to lead anyone down that path. But for me, I really had a thought process of like, okay, what does this mean to me? What's happening? What are these ideas? What are these arguments? What are these, things that are happening, to unpack it? And I was able to expound on those and create the manuscript. So I would just say, find something that find something that you want to read. Write something that you want to read. Write something that really resonates with you. And when you put it out there, hopefully I'm sure there'll be more people who could connect.
Like-minded
Yeah.
individuals.
Yep.
Nah, definitely get that. How long did it take you to write the book?
So I started in 2014.
Okay.
Yeah, I started in 2014 journaling.
Okay.
And then probably we got married in 2017, and I did a little bit more in 2017 when we got married. And then I would say it didn't take long, because literally it was all written out. So I just had to kind of type it up, put it together. And so probably maybe 2 years once I actually started trying to create the manuscript.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because once you get all the things together, you got to put it in a certain order, because like it's broken down into 4 different stages. So it's like, okay, what these things that I thought about at this point, how can I put them in smaller, digestible section. So
Right.
that was more. I think that took more time to really think about the sections that I wanted to put them in, and just structuring the book.
Where did the idea of asking questions come from?
Because I didn't want it to sound like I was an expert on something. You know what I'm saying? So like for me and my wife, like I enjoy what we have. I enjoy the growth that we've had, and I understand that there are people who are not like us.
Mm-hmm.
And I never wanted to go into a space and be like, oh, if you want to be happy, you should do what we do. You know what I'm saying? That was never a goal for me. So, and I understand how the complexity of individuals. So it's just like the questions came from like, okay, understand yourself. And, when you go out to, like I said, even the first chapter was just like who you are versus what you want. Okay, understand who you are, what you want, and then focus on that versus like the most common thing. So it's all the questions are just more so you can understand more about you. And, if you come to the same conclusion, great, but hopefully you come to a different conclusion and you're breaking patterns and you're actually going deeper than staying so surface, if that makes sense.
It does. And where can everybody find your book?
Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. Basically, you could just search "Love That Lasts" or either Cedric Bridgewater. There's not many of us out there, so searching Cedric Bridgewater, "Love That Lasts" will probably be like the top 2 or 3 books.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, well, we definitely appreciate you coming on this
pleasure,
podcast, man. I appreciate you, man. Definitely go and check out his book, man. It's amazing. Like I think we said at the beginning, I got his hardcover book.
Yes.
I
don't even have that.
It's amazing, man. The book is called "Love That Lasts." Definitely go check it out. Go get it. Go buy it. Go write it. Write in it. Journal a little bit. Yeah. Man, it's gonna make you think for sure. And if anything, buy you and your partner a book.
Absolutely.
Do it together.
Absolutely.
And then come, you guys can come in together and then talk about, each other's answers.
Right.
And just have, that nice little session about it. So,
right.
But again, thank you guys for watching. This is Boss Talk and Beyond podcast. We are at the Stretch Loft in Bethesda. There is some information at the bottom. Definitely click that link, book you a session, become a little bit more nimble in 2026, and move a little bit more freely because I know your body is a little stiff, so.
Especially in the winter.
Right, especially in the winter time. But again, thank you for watching. I hope you gained something. I hope you gained some knowledge. I hope you were able to pick up on some things, and in order to continue to better your life. 2026, we're going up, but let's go up together, man. Appreciate y'all.